This is the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast at a Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel on YouTube. And it is Wednesday, March the 13th. And I'm here with Jesse Schule and Sean Higgs. My name is Ross Benjamin. And all three of us of our sponsor site, gamblersworld.net. Just a friendly reminder, folks, before we get to the meat and potatoes here, go to gamblersworld.net right now. We got some specials going on right through Selection Sunday, which is this upcoming Sunday. If you buy a 3-day pass from any one of us for $99, we will add a 4th day in free. So 4 days for the price of 3 right now over at gamblersworld.net. That price is $99. And take advantage of that special. It's guaranteed as well. So if you don't make a profit, you don't win over those 4 days, we will credit your account back that exact amount in which you paid. If it's $99, certainly we will do so. If you use partial credit on that, whatever you paid out of your pocket, we will credit it back. Also, don't forget March Madness package up right now for each one of us. You can get the rest of the conference tournament action. Also, the NCAA, NIT, and CBI right through all 3 of those championship games for just $249. That's also guaranteed, folks. You don't win, you don't make a profit. We'll credit your account back the exact amount of the money you took out of your pocket to make that purchase. Jesse, red hot, buddy. 3-0 yesterday. I got a bunch of stuff here I wrote down for you, and I'd like to share that with the audience if you don't mind.
Yeah, you be my guest, Ross.
Yeah, you had a 10-unit play. We were just talking off air, and Jesse says, I very seldom use 10-unit plays. Well, you did yesterday in the Las Vegas Golden Knights, minus 140, and they were a winner. 3-0 day yesterday for Mr. Schule, Central Florida. He cashed in with in college basketball, 11-4 the last 7 days, 89-59 the last 60. Number 1 overall since the site's inception. Number 1 in college basketball since the site's inception. I'm running out of accolades, so maybe you could add a couple more, my friend.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. So you gotta keep everything at an even keel. Sean is a shining example of that. You can't get too far ahead of yourself, and just keep on doing what you know works and what you've been doing, and that's the plan heading into March Madness, the NCAA tournament.
Sean is a shining example of such. In what regard? I don't know how to take that.
Okay.
Russ is going to make a joke about my shiny head or something.
No. I mean, he's a shining example. For example, Sean was on like some crazy 80% run with his Midday Money show recently. Yeah. But he was too ashamed to brag about it, so it was kind of on the down low. He waited until it was like got so big before he even mentioned it. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yes, but I'm still hitting a robust, I think, 75%. So
because Sean truly believes that you get punished for bragging about winning streaks, so he's very reluctant to do any bragging. I know.
Yeah, there's a fine line between bragging and telling facts. And if you're on a hot streak, you have every right to share that with the audience, because it's not like the 70s and 80s, Sean. And again, you know exactly what I'm talking about, or even into the early 90s. And there's still guys out there to do this to this day, where they brag about a streak and there's no way to verify that streak. So if you're doing well right now, I mean, look, some of us, it's not within our personality. And Sean has always been like that since I've known him. So when he's on this show, I have no problem with promoting him myself, like I just did with Jesse. If I'm on a roll, you're going to hear about it. And you're also going to hear when I don't do well. And that goes for all 3 of us. So we're transparent as they come, folks. I had a guy who's been a smart ass, for lack of a better phrase, who keeps calling me a tout. Well, touts make up records. Touts verify records. They put out records that can't be verifiable. Touts are guys that we saw a lot up until a decade ago, maybe. Nowadays, you can't tout without being exposed. If you tout and you're putting up a fake record, you will be exposed at some point. So there's a fine line between business 101 and promoting something that's working well and just making up something because you don't have anything else to promo. How's that instead of tout? Anyway, Sean, I didn't mean to take all your attention away from your.
No, that's what's it? Take attention to what? For me losing like Milwaukee by like a point yesterday, or I put my stuff out early, so I have this towel at -2 instead of a money line at -130. And although I did catch St. Louis a miracle cover there, so it worked out. But losing day for me yesterday, so back at it today. What am I gonna do? I had Miami. I thought, we talked about the Hurricanes yesterday here on the show. I thought that was the spot.
I did too. Yeah.
With the coach, I figured they're going to show up for the coach one game. He couldn't get that team to show up for one game. Terrible. But then again, it's Russ, we should have our heads checked for betting on a team that's lost 15 in a row, whatever heck they have.
I always say don't ask bad teams to do good things for you, but it's not like they're playing a good team either.
Exactly.
So,
whatever. Well, I'll take a bad college basketball day. But how about the Kings? I had a Sacramento NBA, a rare NBA play yesterday that hit, and actually I have one today too. So the chance of me going 2 NBA plays in a row, like to find one, very rare. I usually don't come out with 2 NBA plays back to back, more or less in a week. So maybe the NBA is my cup of tea right now. So I'm excited about some NBA.
Hey, sometimes you got to go. It's working for you, and if you got a hot hand, ride it. But yeah, that Kings game killed me yesterday because I had the over 235.5. It fell well short of that at 223, but I had 131 at the half.
Yeah.
And they scored less than 100 in the second half. Go figure. But again, there you go, folks. I'm transparent. That was my pay selection yesterday, and I didn't do good with I had 3 shows yesterday. I went 1 and 2 on my free picks. So it wasn't a good day for me, which only means that I'm going to come back like a tiger today and for the rest of the week. And if you were with me last March, folks, I did awfully well, especially from the second round of the NCAA tournament on. So again, I don't panic. Neither should you.
Well, Ross is frozen, Sean. I feel like over the last 7 days, coming off of a losing day, it's an auto sweep. Sweep the next day. If I lose one day, it's got to be a sweep the next day. So maybe Ross will get some of that luck as well.
Let's he'll probably come back, so we'll jump into games. You want to start? I'll start with my K-State game versus Texas here. Let me pull up the. So I don't have the odds pulled up right in front of me right now, which is bad. But
5, I think it is across the board.
Is it up to 5? 142.5. So I thought about taking the under here with Kansas, right, or Kansas State, because we saw them all season long, cover at home, win outright at home, right? BYU, Kansas, Baylor, beat them all. Good home team, but this isn't really a home game. This is a neutral game, and Texas comes in, they beat them twice, right? So how about Texas beating them twice? They're 3-3 down the stretch, but again, you lose at Baylor, you lose at Kansas, you lose at Houston. Losing on the road is not a crazy thing for me, especially in conference play. So I'm like, maybe Texas. I can't do Texas. So I'm going to look at the under here, Jess, because based on the way they've played the first 2 times, 62-56 at 69-66. Why want to go under this 142? Like unders, it's March, it's tournament time. We've seen a lot of unders as it is. Teams that they've played unders head-to-head already. I'm going to go under 142.5 in this game. And look who's back. There he is.
And I got to apologize because it won't let me put on my virtual background. So you're going to see me with a green screen. And I guess maybe I bragged too much about Jesse. They turned me off anyway. I don't know where we're at. Sean, you gave out your pick.
We're talking about the K-State Texas game. I said I thought about taking a dog because K-State as a dog had been a pretty profitable thing, but that was more at home. In their covering because on the road they've just been losing outright. And Kansas for me was they beat them twice, but they've struggled down the stretch. They've lost. Again, we're neutral site games. I looked at the under instead here. I'm going to go under 142.5. They had two low scoring games the first time. Nobody got to 70, and just the way March has played out, if you've seen a lot of these games, you've seen a lot of lower scoring games here. I'm going to stick with how these teams played their first two games with 62-56 and 69-66 and go under a 142.5.
All right. So Sean Higgs likes Kansas State, Texas under 142.5. You know, Kansas State, Jesse, if you watch them this year, they go through periods of time where they go into offensive droughts for 4 or 5 minutes. They play decent defense, but like I said on last week's show, I wasn't buying the fact that they were a bubble team not then. They're not so much now. But what's your take here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Sean. The under looks like a solid look, but he said he can't take Texas. Well, I can take Texas because I look at this game and it seems to me, okay, Texas has just one more win in conference, just 2 more wins overall. Kansas State's got some really decent signature wins this year against ranked teams. It looks like it could be a close matchup, but then when you really dig into the advanced metrics, it shouldn't be that close. First of all, Kansas State's the big wins, they all came at home. None of them came on the road. And you look at point differential, big advantage for Texas. Texas actually the second best free throw shooting team in the Big 12. Kansas State ranks dead last in the Big 12 in turnovers. And when I say last, I mean the most turnovers. You could say that they rank first, but the worst in the Big 12 in turning the ball over. Like you said, Ross, they struggle offensively. And when you look at net rate ranking, Texas is in the top 25 in net ranking. Kansas State, 70th. That's a pretty big margin there. Strength of schedule, Texas, the 16th toughest schedule in the country. Kansas State didn't have an easy schedule, but I think Texas is clearly the better team. I'm not thrilled about laying 5, but I still think they're the play, Texas.
All right. So our official pick is Kansas State and Texas to go under 142.5. Jesse seems to be a strong lean on Texas, late of 5. I have no opinion on this game, but if you put the proverbial gun to my head, I would agree with both of these gentlemen on both of their leans, especially Sean's under 142.5. Next matchup, boy, oh boy, Cincinnati playing Kansas. Cincinnati needed to roar back yesterday from a late deficit to beat a very bad West Virginia team by 5, failing to cover as a 9-point favorite or so. Jesse, Cincinnati comes up 2.5-point favorite, and before you scratch your head and put a scar on it, and the total, by the way, is 136.5. Kansas will be without their 2 stars, Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullers Jr., who are out I know McCullers is out for the entire Big 12 tournament.
Yep.
And Dickinson's both are out for the entire tournament. And that's certainly Kansas was going to be hard pressed to make a deep run or win the tournament, in my opinion, the way they played down the stretch. But even more so now, they're really behind the 8 ball. But could the other role players step up here, Jesse, or is Kansas just an out-and-out fade without their 2 stars in the lineup?
Well, if you're going to say could the role players step up, I'm not going to say no, Ross. I mean, but like Sean likes to say, hope in one hand and poop in the other, right? I mean, it's not just the 2 best players for the Kansas Jayhawks. We're talking about Kevin McCullough Jr., who leads the Big 12 in scoring. Guess who's number 2 in scoring? Hunter Dickinson. Yeah, so these are basically the 2 best, 2 of the best players in the Big 12. They'd be the best. Either one of them could be the best player on any team. Really tough to replace that. And this is a Kansas team that, I mean, you mentioned, Ross, you said you were negative on Cincinnati yesterday for needing to come from behind against West Virginia. Well, last time I checked, Kansas lost at West Virginia during the regular season. I think they had Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough in the lineup in that game. Kansas was not good away from Lawrence, and I know they're only 38 miles from Lawrence at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, but it's not a home game. It's not on campus. With the 2 stars out, I don't know how much excitement there is for this. It feels like Bill Self is waving the white flag to me. I think McCullough could go. I mean, McCullough started the last game at Houston, and they pulled him after the game was out of hand and said, he's got a bruised knee. I don't think that was an injury. I think that was why play a guy that's not 100% when all hope is lost in this game, and why risk these guys in the conference tournament when they're already into the NCAA. And yeah, it just feels like Bill Self is waving the white flag. Cincinnati needs this win probably just to get into the tournament, and Kansas doesn't, which is likely one of the reasons why McCullough is not playing. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. Kansas hasn't been the dominant Kansas team all year, even with their best players in the lineup. And as far as two guys missing, I mean, there isn't two guys in the country that are more valuable to a team than these two guys.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yet, I look at the site that I look at the betting splits on games on, and over 80% on both the volume of bets being made and the money being wagered on this game has gone the way of Kansas, which really makes me shake my head. And go ahead, Jess.
Same guys that were betting Miami yesterday, Ross.
Yeah. I know, because that was a high number. So thanks, Jesse. I appreciate that plug. After all I bragged about, John, you had to remind me of that. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I did give an in-depth analysis of why I thought the money was going on Miami. And in hindsight, it might have sounded silly at the time, but it sounds a lot better right now as we're sitting here today.
Yeah, that you said what Sean usually says, and I'll say what I'll say. Yesterday was a poop in both hands for me. Sean, what's your take on this one? Where I mentioned that the public still likes Kansas here as a dog, even with their 2-star players out. We've talked about both of those guys, even when they were in. Kansas was vulnerable in games played away from Lawrence. What's your take here?
Well, I mean, come on. They've dropped 6 of 10, and they have not been playing well. And away from home, I've said this is not the same Kansas team for whatever reason. You see the two. It's like, man, you want to take Kansas because it's Kansas, and they have a bunch of other good players there. But like Jessa said, man, Bill Self, I think he's saying, you know what? Let's just get these guys healthy and go for it in the NCAAs. And since he's going to be pumped up, and Kansas, hey, how are they going to? I don't know how they're going to respond. Their best guys are going to be like, let's rally. I don't know if they're going to rally because they know if the guy can play or not. The players know if it's kind of like, all right, we're gonna rest you because you're a little banged up, as opposed to let's go out and win. If this was a must win game, would you be out there? Probably. Now you're just going to kind of mail it in here because it's a tournament. I don't know. I agree with Jesse. Like, take it, Cincy. Part of me is kind of like, man, always, it's everybody's going to be on the other side because you're going to see the two leading scorers out. So why wouldn't you bet Cincy? And the line's only moved to half a point from 1.5, or now it's 2.5. But
yeah.
I figured it'd be a little higher with it. I mean, you're missing 30 points a game or whatever. Those two guys are probably more.
Yeah, and plus the rebounding aspect.
Yes,
and
they've struggled with them playing. They struggled with them playing.
Plus the defensive prowess that the big guy gives you, Hunter Dickinson down low. So not that he's a great defensive player, but he's still a presence at 6'11" or so.
See a lot of people on the over in this game.
Yeah. My experience is when situations like this occur, and a team, especially a quality team, is missing a star, or in this case, plural stars, they seem to step up in the short term. However, I don't see that happening here. I just don't. I just think that when it comes to desperation and urgency, first of all, Jesse and Sean both brought up that, hey, you may be able to play at least McCullers in this game, but why even press it? Because you're going to be in the NCAA tournament, and sometimes you have to take a step back for the greater good. And you want to be completely healthy come NCAA tournament time. But in this event, when it comes to desperation and urgency, this is Cincinnati's season. Okay, if they have any aspirations whatsoever, they got to win out in the Big 12. Okay, tournament is. I don't see that happening, but I certainly think that they'll keep their season alive for another day, in my opinion. So I agree with you guys. So our official pick here is Cincinnati -2.5. Or did you
Money line
money
140,
line
Ross.
-140? Okay,
And I will say we all sort of agree that McCullough probably could play if it was a must-win game.
yeah,
And if that's what Bill Self's thought is I need to rest these guys,
right.
we need to get healthy. Isn't it counterproductive if they end up rallying and advancing to the Big 12 tournament final, and maybe another guy gets knocked out of the lineup? I think that's the last thing that Self would want if that is indeed what he's doing here.
Yeah, I mentioned desperation and urgency with Cincinnati. What Jesse just says is the polar opposite. Sean, agree?
Yeah, but it's a right case. Like they talked about holding them out because we want to get healthy for the NCAAs, but then all of a sudden you can beat this team. Well, I mean, how about the other guy Frumfrey goes off for 40 points or something, and they win by 3, and then you have Baylor, who, as much as we like Baylor, we've seen Baylor kind of play down to a little bit, and could, that game could be like 55-59 or something. So all of a sudden they're in the semis. They're in the quarter. It's anything. It's March. Come on, you don't.
I mean, if Bill Self really wants to get his team healthy, maybe that Frumfrey guy will play 10 minutes tonight, and you'll see him get the bench involved, and a lot of guys that have never really logged a lot of minutes will see some time tonight.
It's an interesting.
I mean, that's how you get healthy.
It's
and you know what? Winning a conference tournament isn't an assurance that you're going to make a power conference tournament. That isn't an assurance you're going to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. It isn't an assurance you're not going to get upset in round 1 or 2. And some coaches will look at it like, we got to win 4 games in 4 days to win a tournament, like Kansas has to do here. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. It's 4 games in 4 days they have to win. Yeah. And then, it's quite possible you're playing Thursday of next week with 3 days rest. So, yeah, I get what Bill Self mentality is here. And it's not like this is a program that hasn't hung a lot of banners at Allen Fieldhouse for winning Big 12 titles, whether it be regular season or conference. So it's other coaches who might be desperate to hang their hat on a conference title. Bill Self has got enough of them already. Not that he doesn't want more, but at this point, his main focus is, let me get my team healthy and ready for the NCAA tournament. Let's see if we can make a deep run there. All right, let me get to my game, and that's Stanford and Cal. And boy, oh boy, I just ran out of matchups for us to cover, so I gave these two guys the Big 12. And this is a rivalry game, Stanford and Cal, both from Northern California. And they split the season series with the home team winning on both occasions. But both of those games went under the total. And the average, let me just say the totals in those games were 154 and 154.5, and the games averaged 141 points scored per contest. The total in this game is 150.5. So obviously, the odds makers had made an adjustment here. And actually, this opened at 150. It's up to 151.5. Going beyond the 2 meetings this year, 5 of the last 6 over the last 3 seasons have gone under the total in games played between these rivals. California is not very good offensively. If you look at their analytics within the Pac-12, meaning all Pac-12 games, number 10 offensively, they're number 11 in both 2-point and 3-point shooting. So they're near the bottom of the heap in the Pac-12 when it comes to offensive production. As a matter of fact, over the last 5 games, they've averaged less than 70 points per game. They shot less than 40% over those 5 games. And in the 2 games against, in the last 2 games, I should say, they've averaged 58.5 points per game and shot 34.7% from the field. And one of those games was the regular season finale at Stanford, which they shot 58%. As a matter of fact, the 2 games versus Stanford, they shot 37%. and 22% from beyond the three-point arc in those two games. Stanford, on the other hand, they did put up 80 against Cal in the last game at home, but that snapped a string of 6 straight games in which they had scored 73 or less. Stanford's also played 10-4 to the under this year in true road games and neutral site contests. So they err on the side of low-scoring affairs when that occurs. And this year, by the way, guys, conference tournaments favorites this year, when the total is 150 to 159.5, those games have gone 17-5 to the under and averaged 144.2 points per game. And that includes 8-0 to the under when conference tournament favorites have a total of 150 to 159.5 in conference first round tournament games, 8-0 to the under. So I'm going to say that trend is going to continue here. It matches up nicely with these two teams going at it. And I'm going to go with Stanford and Cal under the total of 150.5. Jesse?
Yeah, Ross, we've talked about conferences that give us a bad taste in our mouth. And this year, for me, the Pac-12 has been one of those conferences. So I got to tell you, I wouldn't bet on this game with Sean Higgs's money. But if I was going to, I would look at Stanford as the slight favorite. Interesting data from Ralph Michaels over at Cal Sports. He posted a graph on Twitter, the records of conference tournaments over the last 3 years. It was interesting. 82%, the favorites have won straight up in 82% of the games in the Pac-12 tournament over the last 3 years, which is one of the highest percentages of all the conferences. So yeah, I would lean with Stanford.
Yeah, well, in all respect to Ralph, he does a great job when he comes to that, but I got a little bit of sour taste in my mouth because we had a discussion. Me and Ralph had a discussion yesterday in conference tournaments. Conference tournament pick or favorites that are coming off 7 or more losses in a row, like Miami yesterday, or 8-0 straight up in ATS since 2016. Well, that's now 8-1 straight up in ATS. Anyway, Sean, your take on Stanford.
Sean's money is on Stanford minus 1.5 that I got last night because there was no money lines up. So that is where Sean's money is. Jesse doesn't have to borrow it. I could use it myself.
Yeah.
It's already in play on the table. It's already in play.
You could use my money to bet on the under too, Jesse, under 150.5. And
Thank you.
But the only thing, you could use my money, but just, I want the money when you collect. Anyway. All right. So there you have it. Stanford Cal under 150.5. Sean Higgs, he's on the Texas Longhorns -5 over Kansas State.
Nope, under.
Oh, excuse me. Kansas State, Texas under 142.5. Jesse had a lean on Texas. I correct myself, but our official play is under 142.5. And Jesse likes the Cincinnati Bearcats -2.5 against Kansas. And he's like
-140 on the money line.
-140 on the money line. Boy, oh boy, it's
Russ is on fire this morning.
Yeah, I was on fire yesterday too, so it's carried over. Anyway, all right, let me say this again real quickly, folks. Cincinnati -140 on the money line over Kansas. Sean likes Kansas State, Texas under 142.5. And I can get my pick right, which is Stanford and Cal under 150.5. There you have it, folks. 3-0 sweep tonight. And we will be back with these gentlemen on Friday on our live show. We'll be discussing more conference tournament action in college basketball, and we look forward to that. Next Monday, don't forget, folks, next Monday we'll be doing our NCAA tournament show. We'll be discussing all 4 regions in the NCAA tournament. And I will be back tomorrow with Doug Upstone, and we'll be talking more college basketball tournament action at that time. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. Just hit that black subscribe button right underneath, and that will get you going. Also, if you're on your PC, you'll see a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Just click on that. It'll serve the same purpose. And if you have subscribed or you're new and you haven't done this, well, take a second to go into your YouTube settings and click on the alert notification bell. for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting channel. You'll be notified immediately upon any of our podcasts going up here on our great channel. Jesse, there's a like button underneath.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button, folks. Just a small token of your appreciation for our time, work, and effort we put into bringing you a quality podcast on a daily basis and making you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. Until the next time, for Jesse Schule, Sean Higgs, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.